Today I'm here with Cathy Mulroy, who is the author of My View from Blackened Rocks. And Cathy was one of the first women hired, or the first woman hired, at the old Inco, now Valet. And she's here to talk about her experiences as a woman in a male-dominated industry, as well as chat about leadership and other ways to support women in the industry. Thanks for joining me, Cathy.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad to have you.
This is exciting. While I haven't read your book yet, that is going to be my next read, and I'm excited about it. I guess let's just start. Why did you even decide to enter a male-dominated industry?
I got married at 16, and it was really a toxic marriage. I didn't have any education. I had grade 9. I didn't have any money. I had no skills. And when Inco said that they were going to be hiring women in a male job with the same pay and benefits, that was all I needed to get out of that marriage. So that's the reason I went.
And how long were you in the industry for?
30 years.
Wow.
I did my 30 years of hard labor.
Yes, I bet. So tell me a little bit about your role when you went. First of all, how was the interview? Was there an interview or?
There was a very small interview. They asked you what you have ever done. I said, well, I pumped gas. I didn't do anything. But because I was married at 16, my impression was that they didn't think I would stay. When they hired me at 19 years old, they probably said, oh, well, she's not going to stay. So I think that I was picked for that reason. And I was really tiny back then, too. So I think that was the reason.
Yeah, fair. And little did they know you were going to stick around for 30 years.
Little did I know, too.
So what kept you around for 30 years?
The money.
Okay.
The money and the benefits. And then I was separated, so it became a single mother. So that's the reason I stayed. And then it became my job. And then every time they tried to get rid of me, I really took it personally, and I learned how to fight back.
That's amazing. So tell me a little bit about how they tried to, or some experiences you had in them trying to remove you. I'm sure because as a woman, maybe that was, part of the reason for removing you, but what were your experiences?
Well, when the women first started, there was 10 of us at the copper and 3 at the nickel refinery. They separated us, so they wouldn't let us work together. So there was 3 in the anode department, which was a dive. It was hard, hot, dangerous. Mm-hmm. And there was 3 of us there on a shift. So you had a day shift, an afternoon, and a graveyard. So there was no communication between the women. It took 5 years for women to get a washroom in the anode department.
Wow.
We had to walk 4 or 5 departments away to go to the bathroom. So there were a lot of those kinds of things. There were no laws, so that men could talk to you any way they wanted to, and absolutely nothing was done about it.
It was probably more a you problem if you complained about it.
Oh, I was called a troublemaker. Mm-hmm. Yes, mm-hmm. And that's okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what builds the resilience, right?
Yes.
So how did you endure it all? I mean, that's heavy stuff to go into work every day and know what you're walking into. How did you endure it?
I don't know. I guess it's just part of my personality. I never was afraid of things. I don't like spiders, mind you, but I was never afraid. And my parents brought us up that, my dad especially, he used to say things, don't ever be intimidated by people, because everybody has to sit on the toilet. Even the queen has to do that.
That's amazing.
So when that kind of upbringing was what I think happened, and it gave me strength. My dad was a hard rock miner too, so I picked up stuff from him.
Did he support you going into the mining industry?
My dad did. Well, so did my mom. Yes, they were okay. My dad knew what it was like in the anode because he started in the anode. Okay. So he knew how dangerous it was, and they were afraid for me. Mm-hmm. But he said, just go and try it. Just go and try it. So yes. So they were supportive in that way.
I'm sure that helped you. So how did you, was there anything you kind of leaned to support you on those hard days where you were being harassed, I'm assuming, you were discriminated?
There was nobody. There was nobody to talk to. I didn't know anything about unions. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know that if the union was any progressive or whatever. Anyways, it was all run by men.
Yeah.
No, there was nobody. There was nothing. Nobody I could talk to. The other women were, like I said, on different shifts. So I just had myself. And that was it.
So you were your own safety and your own support system.
That was it.
So what did you tell yourself? Like, was there anything that you did to help motivate you?
I talked a lot into the mirror. I did. I'd say things like, this is your job, okay? This is your job. Now, if you quit or you get fired or you get anything like that, you're only going to have to work as a waitress somewhere. Not that there's a waitress problem. Don't get me wrong.
No, for sure.
But it's the money.
Yeah.
It's the money. And I'm thinking, wait a minute here. I've got these benefits. And I would talk to myself in the mirror, and that's sort of how I got through things.
That's amazing, that self-motivation of being able to be your own, motivational factor. That's hard because often people have people they can support, that they can lean on, or sometimes they don't. And so...
Yeah, and my parents were kind of like from an older generation where there wasn't that kind of discussion.
Yeah, you didn't talk about your feelings.
You didn't
and
talk
what you were
about
going
your
through.
feelings. You didn't talk. No, you didn't. You just didn't. And my father always said we shouldn't cry because that showed a weakness in your character. Mm-hmm. And so it's very hard for me to cry. I have a really hard time crying.
That's fair.
But that's okay too, because it really helped when you get called in the office, time after time.
Well, tell me, we were just talking about it before we turned the camera on, but one of the incidents you had about your uniform. Can you tell me about that
yes.
again?
Well, I went to buy a pair of coveralls because the coveralls that they had at Inco were for men, so they had little hips, and the crutch was down to your knees. Well, you can't, and of course you couldn't do that. The boots, when I first started, I took a size 4 in men's work boots. They couldn't find anything to fit me properly, and the metatarsal guards that they put on wasn't part of the boot, and I would flip around and try going up a ladder with those on. So I needed a pair of coveralls, so I went and got the boys' size 18 coveralls, and they were tight, but then I'm 19, 20 years old, So when I got into this other department, they said, we have a problem with your attire, is how they put it. And I said, well, what's wrong with my attire? They said, well, your pants are too tight. I go, well, he says, well, I said, are you having complaints? He said, yes, people are complaining that their pants are too tight. And I go, well, how exactly is that bothering people? And they started saying, well, we've had complaints. And I said, well, what are the complaints? And who's complaining? So, well, we can't tell you that. Then they started laughing and they said, well, Cathy, your pants are so tight that we can see the date of the nickel in your back pocket. I said, well, and I slammed my hard hat down and I said, what are you doing looking at my eyes? Okay? You keep your eyes in your head and off my body.
I'm sure they didn't like that response.
Oh, no, they did. And to top it off, he's got a shirt on that is so tight that the buttons are just like this, like they're screaming.
Yeah.
Right? And my pants are too tight, right?
Wow, that's amazing.
Right. So that didn't go over very well. They were at me constantly after that in that department. Yeah.
So you never got fired though?
Oh, close. But it's learning the law. When you learn the laws and your rights and you use them, and that's where the union came in then, because then I figured out, because what had happened was I was always in trouble. So this guy says, oh, you can put in a grievance. I said, well, what's a grievance? He said, well, that's like when they give you a step or a warning, you can fight it. You got to go get something. It's like a lawyer. They're called stewards. So I found this guy. He was a steward, Bruce McKagan, and he was brand spanking new. And I never put in one before. Well, let me tell you, I made Bruce's career as a steward. We became great friends. But he wrote everything down. He wrote every time. And then when we went to the grievance, he said, I didn't have to remember everything because everything was written down. I go, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to write everything down. And that's exactly what I did. Every time I was in trouble, I'd write it down on cigarette packages, on paper towels, and then I'd come home and I'd stick it in a bin and close it. And when I retired after 30 years, I had 3 bins full of stuff that had happened. Got a young woman to help me organize, and then that's how I got
the book.
The book. That's right.
Wow, that's it sounds like you picked up some interesting little, I guess, support modalities throughout your career. So the talking in the mirror, the making note of things. And I like how you just put it away when you got home to kind of, this is what happened. You got it out of your system.
Right.
Put it on paper, and then you were able to at least have some closure while you were home.
That's exactly
and assume your role as
mother.
And all those other things that we have to do, which is cool that you had that ability to just innately know to do these things.
Well, that's just it. It was almost like there was nothing behind it. Like it was just, I just did it. I just did it. And later on, then I figured it out that was how I was getting rid of the stress, was by just putting it in the covering it, putting it in the bin, cover it up. That's it.
And getting it out.
And getting it out.
You weren't holding it in.
I think writing is really important for people to get the feelings out.
Absolutely. And just putting it on paper, because when it's in your head, it's ambiguous and it's all over the place.
Right.
And as soon as you put it on paper, it's like, oh, okay, I can compartmentalize this and put it aside, because now it's out. It's actually not still inside of me. So that's a great technique that I think a lot of people need to do that. And I always say people, if you're confused or you're overwhelmed, just write it out, get it out of your system. And then what you do with it after, you can always go back to it. You don't have to worry about forgetting it. And you got to write a book with if you hadn't kept all that.
Oh, no. Then it would all be under memory, and that would be no good. And diaries, I kept diaries. So, I flipped through the diaries while I was writing the book, and I went, oh, so that's how it happened. Oh, I forgot all about that. And, and then that would conjure up another memory, another memory.
It's a good healing process, too,
it was. It was a great healing. Reliving it was not easy.
No.
Because you have to relive
it
over and over, the editing. But once the book was done, it was good. It was a good healing.
Very cathartic. Just kind of, you got to re-feel the pain, and I always speak to the fact that you have to feel to heal. And so going over those memories, I think, maybe allowed you to feel that pain and release it.
Right.
Once and forever. Once you
put it in the book.
Which is great. So what was there an empowering moment for you that you can remember? Like something that really struck out that you were like, this is my moment. This is where I feel that I'm, in charge of me, in charge of showing up. Was there any kind of moment for you that created that?
Well, when I found out about the union, Dave Patterson was the president, and he was very progressive at that time. Young people. We were all from the hippie generation, and civil rights and women's movement, all that. So all those people were now in charge, right? So which was really, really exciting. Anyways, he asked if I wanted to go to Hamilton to learn about the right to refuse unsafe work.
Okay.
And it was brand new. It just came out, right? So I said, yeah. Well, so my husband wasn't too thrilled about it. But I went, and I learned. And I felt different. When I found that people have rights, then when I went back to work, guess who was the first person to use
exercise her rights?
Yeah. So I used that. It's in the book and the story about it. And I think, and the boss is yelling, and he's like spitting on me, and is swearing, and his fingers are pointing at my face and all this, and I'm like really scared, but I wasn't scared on the outside. On the inside, I was terrified, right? And so then he said, you get out of this and go home and grab your lunch pail and blah, blah, blah. So I did. And when I went in and talked in the mirror, I said, oh, did I do it right? Did I do all the steps right? Did I do it right? And then the person in the mirror goes, yeah, I did good. And then...
That's a very empowering moment.
It was. It really was, yes.
And did you find it kind of built your rapport, or at least you acquired... Not that you should have had to earn that respect, but did you acquire a certain degree of respect?
Oh, no.
No, definitely not.
No, I just made it worse. It really did.
I bet it did.
Yes, it did. Because then there was like the things on the walls, Cathy is a pig. You go and talk to the boss, and the boss says, well, Cathy, you knew this was a man's environment, and you don't like it, quit, and all that kind of stuff, And
you endured that for 30 years.
Right to the very end. Oh, because what happens is, INCO wasn't just a job. INCO is a world all on its own, okay? You had their own police force. You had their own politics. You had their own bosses. They had their own laws. They had everything. Everything was there, like all the maintenance, all the trains, everything was the company, okay? So outsiders didn't understand what INCO-sized meant. You'd have no clue unless you're part of it. So that's sort of how it goes along. And I was just like a family member, the black sheep of the family, right?
Causing all the problems.
Oh yeah, no, I wasn't causing them. I brought them to the surface. That's the way I look at it.
Oh, absolutely. I don't
Yeah.
think you were causing problems at all. You
No.
were definitely creating awareness and empowering yourself and probably the women, even though you couldn't. Do you think that was strategic why you guys couldn't?
Oh
interact?
yes, oh
Yeah.
yes, because in the book, there was one time that some of the women were going to go and meet in the drive, with
Mhm.
the women's drive,
Mhm.
and have lunch.
Yeah.
So I was sneaking, and I went. Well, the next day we were going to do it again. Well, the general forum and this other general was hiding behind the trains, and I brown bagged it. So I left my pail, my lunch pail on the table, opened, but I brown bagged it, and I'm walking through, and I had a peanut butter and jam sandwich, and he grabs my wrist, right? And the bag is like flipping around like this. Oh, and he goes, and where do you think you're going? Because somebody had squealed that I had gone to eat lunch with the women, right? I said, I'm just going to the bathroom. And he goes, and what's in the bag? Quick as I am, I said, it's a used Kotex pad. You want to see it?
Nice.
I know. Ah.
Yeah.
He let go of my hand. I was scared. What if he would have said yes? I went, oh my God.
Yeah.
You know, my heart's
Smart.
pumping in my chest. And
But the fact
So-
that we still can draw to those things, and men would still have the same reaction these days.
oh, of course.
That's the crazy part,
I
that
know.
we're still in many ways, and as a society, where you were, you
Yeah.
know,
Yes.
back then.
Oh, I know.
It's so was there anything that you feel you could have had to be more supported and feel safe as a woman in a male dominated industry?
I think if they would have let us work together, I think that would have made a big difference
Mhm.
because I think that we communicate differently.
Absolutely.
Women communicate differently, you know, and stuff like this. So I think if we would have worked together, say there was 5 of us on the
Mhm.
shift, I think that would have been really great.
What creates that community of safety and that network of,
Yes.
again, like-minded people and women to come together
Yes.
to share their experiences and to support each other. But
Yes.
obviously that was strategic to keep you guys,
Keep everybody separated.
alienate them so then they don't know
Divided,
what's going
conquered.
on. Yeah.
That's it. That's it.
And like if you were in a position to support women, because it's still a male dominated industry,
Yes.
there are still women, I'm sure, that are struggling. And I mean, I have a lot of friends and colleagues, and I know a lot of stories, and things still happen in the mind to women, 100%. And so, you know, is there anything that you can offer women to persevere in the way that you did?
The mirror. Really use the mirror, because when you're talking to yourself in the mirror and you're saying, you know what, this is your job. This is you were put here for a reason. This is yours. Don't let them take that from you. I think talking in the mirror and just building yourself up, I think that's what all you can do. But now you have groups. You have women's groups that you can get on the phone. You can go on Facebook. There's so much more with communicating with other women that we didn't have back then, because the city and all the wives and all that, they were at home. They were salt and pepper people, you know.
Yeah.
They weren't, if they were out working, like say they worked at the bank, well, if they got pregnant, they lost their job. They got married, they lost their job. You know, all these kinds of crazy things that didn't happen very long ago.
Well, and they still happen.
And they still
happen. And that's the concerning part, is that they still happen. And what I've experienced and what I've seen is that a lot of times women will kind of enmesh themselves with the male characteristics so that they can be like them and build that rapport. So women still don't have a feeling of being authentic in male-dominated workplaces. In fact, even in not male-dominated workplaces, but there's still a strong male presence.
Right.
They do feel that they tend to enmesh themselves with those male characteristics so they can seem tough, so they can seem unemotional.
Yeah.
And
It's
it's
true.
unfortunate because that takes away from a woman's ability to be a leader, in my
That's right.
opinion.
Yeah.
And it's a hard thing to do because, you know, anytime you go against the grain, there's going to be backlash.
Oh, there was lots of backlash. I mean, I slept with a shotgun under my bed when I was a single person. They killed my cat. Somebody cut up my hose in my backyard. Electrical staples in my driveway. Phone calls, talking to my son and my little girl, like, you know, what your mother's doing. She's da 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 da. You know, it's a little kid that answers the phone, and you know,
It's sad to hear because it's still that disempowerment that exists this day and age. I mean, I've experienced it in my career as well.
Yes.
And it's still prevalent. And the thing is, you know, it's hard to persevere, but I like the idea of, you know, that self-talk and really getting in touch with who you are authentically and building yourself through that reflection. Because again, if you can't look at your reflection and be positive and motivate yourself, no one else will.
That's right.
And
That's
often
right.
there aren't safe spaces for women, or they don't feel they're safe spaces for them to be empowered, which is why I developed this workshop specifically for women. And it's a long process because it takes time to build that character, to build that rapport with yourself, and then to go into a male dominated industry and feel empowered in a room full of wolves.
That's right.
And it's I mean, you experience that every day for 30 years.
Yeah.
So how do you feel that contributed to who you are today?
Well, I got really sick after I left INCO. When I retired. All that stress and all that really did a number on my body. And my doctor even said, he says, you'll never have a nervous breakdown, but your body is going to give out. And it did. And it did. And I was in and out of the hospital, operations after operations on my intestines from all the stress. And then I was dying. 18 months I was in bed. And my husband was looking after me. Met this wonderful doctor in Toronto. And he said, I can help you. I can help you. And he did. And I don't even take an aspirin.
That's amazing.
You know, but you know, while I was dying, I kept saying to myself, I need to finish the book. I got to write the book. I got to write the book. I got to write the book. And I think that motivation, when you find something that you really, really
Passionate
have to do
about,
in life, you know, that's what really got me through that, and a great doctor.
Yeah. Well, and I think the self-talk that you were able to build, like, did you have that self-talk while you were ill?
Oh yes, that little dog that you were that little dog's the white one. She was with me all the time. She was always, we had a hospital bed set up, and she was with me all the time. And I would talk to her, and I'd say, you know, Bella, you know, I'm feeling really rough today, and she'd just put her head on me, and you know, and I think that. And we watched a lot of Netflix together.
That's cute.
Yeah, and I think that was, and I have a wonderful husband, so, you know, he was great to look after me and feed me and all the rest that you have to do when somebody's bedridden.
Yeah, well, I mean, it seems like the perseverance you acquired in those 30 years, while it contributed to a little bit of an illness, you seem to have taken those skill sets and allowed yourself to heal, which is remarkable, to go from 30 years of, you know, literally just, you know, dealing with that stuff every single day, to then becoming ill and healing yourself. I mean, that's, while I'm sure it was an incredibly hard journey to go through that, you are such an inspiration for so many people, because you did it not just in your career. You're welcome, in your life as well. And those are skill sets that people aren't born with. They have to work through. And sometimes they have to go through these arduous and very painful experiences to learn that they have those skills and that talent. So it's unfortunate you have to go through that. However, I'm sure your book is the testament to that empowerment that women can reach to.
Yes, I think it is. I really do. Now, I'm not an author writer. And when I was getting it edited, they were saying, well, we could switch this around and make you sound a little better. And no, it's a memoir. I said, it has to be my voice. If it was a storyline, whatever, sure, help me out all you can. But when it's a memoir, and I want to come across as this person who I am, then I don't want anything changed.
No, and that's fair. It's authentically you. And I'm excited to read it. And also, I'm excited to share a copy with each of the participants.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Absolutely. Yes. I think there is something to learn from other people's experiences, especially yours. It's just so motivating to hear what you've been through. And I'm looking at you now, and you're glowing. You're just, this is a phenomenal experience. And I'm excited that I got to meet you.
Oh, you too.
Thank you. It was interesting how it worked too. So I'm excited to give everyone a copy, and I'm hoping to even have you maybe come into one of the programs and do.
Oh, that would be wonderful. I would love to. Yes, I would love to. And like I said, it was a Toastmaster, so
yeah, no,
it's right up my alley.
Absolutely.
Yes,
and again, just having women being able to ask you questions about your perseverance, because again, while that is something you experienced over 30 years ago, women are still experiencing this every day.
It's true. I spoke in Ottawa at Ottawa University, and after the presentation was finished, the women came down to talk to me. And that's what they were saying. They go, oh, I just feel so much. I can do this. Well, if you can change like one person, or give that person some power or some energy or some strength, well, that's wonderful.
Absolutely. I feel the same. If you can, leave someone better off than when you found them, then I've done my job.
Yeah.
And just to hear your story that you were able to persevere, at a time where there wasn't support, where at a time there were no resources, and you were absolutely alienated on your own, and you were able to make it through and then use that skill set to help yourself heal. That's phenomenal, because you were completely a self-learner, and those skill sets now, there's more support. You can you can find other support, including this program that I'm developing. It is support, and it's something. However, to empower yourself to know that you can throw yourself in any arena and you can thrive, not just survive, that's a fascinating thing to give people, because, if you can do it, everyone can do it.
That's right. If I can do it, so can everybody else. And I think that's all women really need is that little push that, okay, well, it's really going to be hard. But don't give up. Do whatever you do. Don't give up. Or don't say, "Oh, I'm not going to do it anymore. It's too hard."
Yeah.
Put away the Kleenex box.
Yeah. Just feel it, let it go, and keep on going. Which again is a hard thing to do, even for myself. Like, there are days where it's just like, if I get one more no, or you're going through another situation and you're just, you feel so disempowered. It is tough. And I always think of what I say to my kids. Would I tell them to give up, or would I tell them to keep going?
That's right.
So that's always my reflection of, okay, well, what would you tell your kids? Because tell yourself that same advice, and you take it and you run with it.
That's right.
So is there anything you'd like to share before we sign off? Anything that can empower women, or anything that you want to share that feels good to share with the world?
I think that women should write down what's going on. I really do. I think that is really important. When you write things down, and then you come back even a month or two later and you look at it, it's in the past now. So it's not, there's not the same type of emotion or that attached to it. Or if you've come up with a solution, that's the best. Like, okay, I did this and I did that. And then all of a sudden you come up with a solution, and then you write that down and you go back and said, okay, well, this is what happened, and here's the solution. You can do the same thing. Yeah. Exactly. You can do the same thing for the next one and the next one. And that's what happened. Like, when I'd go to a different department, or I'd bid out or something, well, the boss that I had would go to that boss. More. She's this, she's that. You try to control her. Why they felt they had the need to control me is, I don't know. And when that happens, that you go to the next department, well, they already have a view about you. They already have an opinion, and oh, I'm going to show her I can do that. Okay, show me.
So at least you're able to go back and say, okay, well, I already been here, and I know what the formula is for me.
Yeah.
And I know there is a solution.
Yes.
So and did it work?
Yes. That's it. Once you learn that there is a solution, and standing up for yourself is the best. It really is. I had a boss, a big man, and I was working in an office setting at that time, and he took up the doorway like this. And he said, "You are no longer allowed to talk to anybody here anymore. You are no longer allowed to go into the other parts. And you know what? We're even going to time you in your bathrooms." And I walked right up, and I must have been going up to him in his big belly. And I said, "If you don't move, you're going to be singing soprano." Now, it was a threat, but it wasn't a threat because I could have said anything to that effect. He knew what I was talking about. And you know what? He moved.
Well, you set your boundary. And just sometimes it's just speaking up. People, it's like children. People, they like to see how far they can go with you, right?
Yeah.
So the minute you stand up for yourself, you set a boundary, and often that is all people need to know. Okay, I'm not messing with this person.
Yep.
But it's hard to, even in those moments that are incredibly intimidating.
Oh, it's so scary.
It is
really
scary.
is.
And we see that in women in all sorts of jobs where they don't want to speak up because you don't want to lose your job,
Right.
all these things. You don't want to lose your reputation. And in a small community, that's everything. And if people start to destroy your reputation, it's hard to show up. Right. And it shows that you've been able to persevere in the worst case scenarios as a woman and still find happiness and success and health. And to me, that is something that we can share with the world, because there's women struggling every day right now in the same way that you did. So if we can carbon copy, what you did, and we can share that with women, I think we can help maybe foster a little bit of change in the world.
And I do have a reputation. I do. And that's why I never changed my name when I got married.
Because you're like, I've earned this reputation. I've worked hard for this.
I worked hard for this reputation.
Yeah.
And when people say, "Oh, Cathy Mulroy, oh yeah, I heard about you," I said, "It's all true." That's that's what I do now. It's like, yeah, it's all true. Everything you want to say is true. Just
Yeah, because
let it
you
go.
know who you are.
I do.
And it doesn't matter what other people...
It doesn't matter what other people
Yeah.
think. It does not matter.
Well, this is exciting. I'm so excited to share this interview with everyone and also to share your book with the participants.
Oh, that would be great.
And
Yeah.
to have you come on and share your experiences and your stories,
Yep.
and just have women, give them an opportunity to ask you some of those hard questions.
Mhm.
I'm really excited. So I hope everyone enjoyed this, and I hope you tune into the program. I hope all the mining companies or the male-dominated companies look to sponsor a woman, because this is something that will definitely help shift people and empower women in their leadership roles. So thank you for joining me, Cathy. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. It was nice meeting you.
It was awesome meeting you. And again, just check out our website, creativeelearningdesign.ca, for more info about the Women in Mining Leadership Empowerment Program.